Part 1. The Drop. Ever feel like you're watching yourself from outside your body? Like you're there, but not really there? Maybe it started after a big night, or maybe it just crept up on you. Either way. If you're in your early 20s and things are starting to feel weird, you're not alone. And no, it's not just about that pill you took at the festival. What we're going to talk about today is something that hits different. It's that moment when life suddenly feels unreal, when you're sitting with your mates, but feeling like you're watching everything through a screen. Maybe you've noticed it's harder to connect like you used to, or maybe you're starting to question everything you thought you knew about yourself. The initial experience. Let's break this down. You might have first noticed it after dropping MD, and yeah, that might have been the trigger that opened the door. But here's the thing. What you're experiencing isn't about the drugs. They just showed you something that was already there. The massive shift that happens when you start moving from being a kid to becoming a man. Think about it. Remember when life felt simple? When you could just rock up to your mate's place, jump on the PlayStation, and everything made sense? Now suddenly you're expected to have your shit together, make big decisions, and somehow know what you want to do with your life. It's like someone changed the rules without telling you what the new ones are. The biology. Here's where it gets interesting, and stay with me, because this is actually pretty wild. Your brain right now, it's literally rewiring itself, not in some vague, metaphorical way. We're talking actual biological changes happening in your head right now. Your prefrontal cortex, the part that handles all the complex thinking and decision-making, is going through its final major development. It's like your brain is upgrading its operating system, but instead of just installing updates overnight, you have to use the computer while it's happening. No wonder things feel glitchy sometimes. That weird feeling you get, like you're watching everything through VR glasses, or when familiar places suddenly feel foreign. That's your brain doing a major recalibration. It's processing reality in a whole new way, and sometimes that means things feel a bit off while the system updates. Research shows this happens to way more people than you'd think, especially in your early 20s. When your brain's rewiring itself, it's actually super common to feel disconnected or like things aren't quite real. It's not because you're losing it, it's because you're leveling up. Universal initiation. But here's the really important part. What you're going through isn't some modern problem. Throughout history, across every culture, young men have gone through this exact phase. The only difference is that in the past, there were clear markers for this transition. Traditional cultures had initiation rites, specific challenges and ceremonies that helped young men navigate this exact period. Think about Aboriginal walkabout traditions or ancient tribal warrior trials. These weren't just random traditions. They were carefully designed systems to help young men through exactly what you're experiencing now. The problem is we've lost most of these frameworks in our modern world. Instead of having clear guidance and support through this transition, we're expected to just figure it out on our own. Modern context. The tricky thing about going through this in 2024 is that no one really talks about it. Sure, everyone's posting their highlight reels on Instagram, but who's actually saying, hey, I feel like I'm losing my grip on reality sometimes? Most of the guys I work with think they're the only ones going through it. They'll be sitting in class or at work, or even just having a coffee with mates, when suddenly everything feels unreal, like they're watching themselves in a movie. And because no one's talking about it, they think there's something wrong with them. The physical experience. Let's get specific about how this feels, because I bet some of this will sound familiar. You're in a conversation but feel weirdly distant from it. Your reflection in the mirror sometimes looks strange, like it's not quite you. Familiar places suddenly feel foreign. You catch yourself wondering if you're really here. Social situations that used to be easy now feel overwhelming. You're overthinking everything, especially at night. If you're nodding along to any of this, you're exactly where you need to be. Because here's the thing. This isn't your brain breaking down. It's your brain breaking through. When this hits, you might notice that emotional responses feel different too, like when you're with your family or close mates and you should feel connected, but there's this weird sense of distance. It's like watching a movie of your life instead of living it. This is actually your brain creating space for a new way of experiencing the world. The deeper meaning. Think about it like this. Remember when you were a kid and you lost a tooth? There was that weird period where the old tooth had to get wobbly and fall out before the new one could come in. It was uncomfortable, maybe even a bit scary, but it was necessary for growth. What you're going through now is similar, just on a much bigger scale. Your old way of seeing the world, your old way of being in your body, your old way of understanding yourself, it all has to get a bit wobbly before the new version can emerge. Scientists have found that your brain's stress response is actually heightened during this time. It's like your brain's security system is on high alert while these changes are happening. That's why things that never used to bother you might suddenly feel intense. Your senses are actually becoming more refined, more adult, but right now it just feels overwhelming. The wake-up call. Maybe for you it was MDMA or LSD that first cracked open this door, or maybe it was something else, a relationship ending, losing a job, or just waking up one day feeling different. Whatever it was, it's acted like an alarm clock. And yeah, no one likes being woken up abruptly, but sometimes that's exactly what needs to happen. Here's what's wild. This experience often hits hardest when you're in social situations that used to feel totally normal. You're at a party or a pub with your mates, doing the same stuff you've always done, but suddenly it all feels different. You're seeing everything with new eyes, and that can be intense. But this heightened awareness, it's actually a sign that you're growing into a more conscious version of yourself. Moving forward. The key thing to understand is that this isn't something to fix, it's something to move through. In the next video, we're going to talk about how to navigate this space without letting it overwhelm you. We'll look at why connecting with older men who've been through this is crucial and how to start rebuilding your sense of self from the ground up. But for now, I want you to know this. What you're experiencing is real. It's significant, and it's actually a sign that you're right where you need to be. This is the beginning of your real story. If you want to dive deeper into the science of what's happening in your brain during this time and understand more about why this experience hits so many young guys, check out our deep dive video on the biology of early adult transition. We get into the nuts and bolts of brain development and break down exactly why you're feeling what you're feeling. Next up in part 2, we're going to talk about how to stay afloat when everything feels unreal. But for now, just know you're not losing it. You're actually finding yourself.